All right, this story is called Sometimes a Bargain Isn't a Bargain. Now, I worked at Radio Shack part-time around 1975 during the CB craze. And at that time, we were still selling a lot of audio. Some of our equipment was a Kenwood's with our name on it. And it was pretty interesting stuff. Some people caught on to the fact that Radio Shack really wasn't making a lot of things, that they had partnered up with other companies. So you got people in there that would shop on the sale. Now, one item we had that everybody wanted to look at, but nobody wanted to buy, was an ELAC, I believe it was ELAC Miracord. It was a turntable. It was $198 Radio Shack price. And the turntable had a large dust cover, and it had wooden handles on each side, which made it heavier. It was almost like the top for a rotisserie chicken. Go look it up, 1975. You won't have to go in. It's basically the first turntable on the page, the most expensive. The way Radio Shack does the catalog is the most expensive to the cheapest. Well, anyway, you'll see it there. Now, what made this ELAC Miracord so unique, besides the push buttons, which were really stupid, it had these big silver push buttons, and when you pushed it down, the action actually made the turntable hop. So you had to be very careful that you didn't have you didn't push the button too hard or while it was playing a record, or it would jump. It had a lot of quirky problems, you know. It was a lot of razzmatazz when you looked at it. Now, the only feature I saw on it that was different than any other turntable was if you looked at the needle while it was running, there was a knob you could rotate, and you could adjust it, the tracking. All turntables, the tone arm wants to track in towards the spindle, okay? And they had an anti skating device on it, and you could actually adjust it. You could actually see it pulling back, the tone arm pulling back the opposite direction than skating in, and you could zero it out. Okay, other than that, the turntable was just big, it was clunky, it had low rumble, but all this, it wasn't any good because it was just stupid, okay? And people would come in and they'd take the dust cover off and they'd go look at it. Now, right above the turntable was a shelf that came out for the next unit above, and they lift this turntable cover up, and it would be a little heavier than they expected, so they apply a little bit more pressure to lift it up, and then it would hit the shelf above and drop back down onto the turntable, and things would get broken, and I'd mail away and get new parts. So anyway, the manager basically had it enough with that unit. I believe the dust cover got dropped and cracked, and we ordered another one, and at some point he just says to me, make me an offer. Just make me an offer. Get this thing out of the store. I'm tired of this thing. So I just jokingly said, 20 bucks. It's yours. Give me the $20. He holds his hand out. He goes and writes it up as is, where is, or whatever he wrote. It might have been surplus, or we had another thing. I can't think of it right now. We had a box in the store of stuff that had been opened up and parts were missing, and we throw it on there. Bargain table. We'll call it bargain table. I took the thing out to the trunk of my car. I took it home. I looked it over. I ordered a couple pieces and fixed it. And I didn't like the turntable because I had a Rotel, and a Rotel was like a British manufacturer. And I actually used to know the name of the company. I think it's Pioneer. It was the British section of Pioneer was Rotel. Well, anyway, it was a single play turntable. The anti-skate device was just a weight. It was a cute little turntable, and that's what I used. But what I liked about it was the dust cover hinged up. You just lifted it up, and it had these anti-gravity hinges on it. So when you lifted it up, it would stay where you left it. And I used that turntable. And off to the side was the ELAC Miracord, a $298 turntable. And for a while, I tried using it. But every time you take that dust cover off, it's really stupid, okay? So I said to myself, you know, I really had enough of this thing. So I'm sitting at work, and there's a group of guys, And they were night shift that were made to come over to the day shift because they weren't working at night. They got caught not working. They were watching baseball games at night instead of working. I won't go into that in details, but in other words, now they're on a day shift with us. And the one guy, they start throwing names of companies around. And the one guy said, oh, ELAC Miracord is the best turntable there is. I said, no, it's not. And he meant the model at radio. I said, the model at Radio Shack? And I started telling him all the things that are wrong with it. And he's like, I said, dude, I own one. $20, it's yours. $20, it's yours. Well, I said, I'll bring it in here. It's 20 bucks. You can look it over. You can test it out. But I want $20 in my hand before you take it. So the next day, I bring the turntable in, and the guy's looking it over, and he's pulling this. I'll give you 15 for it. I said, no. I said, 20. I said, you know that turntable's worth a lot more than $20, especially if you don't even have a turntable. And it had a decent cartridge in it. Just a cartridge alone. It wasn't a V15-4. It was the next one down. And I said, that cartridge alone is worth $20, okay? And I had the cables with it. It was complete. There were no cracks or anything in the dust cover. So this guy kept standing there. I'll give you 15 for it. I said, you know what? I said, deal's off. And he was bluffing pretty good. I walked over to a buddy of mine that was sitting there. I said, do you want that turntable? I said, he says, it's okay. I said, no, take it. So he picks it up, he walks it out to his car, puts it in the trunk and closes it. Now he comes back, and then you know what's coming next. Well, I really only think it's worth 50. It doesn't matter what you think it's worth, and you wouldn't pay the 20. The turntable's gone. It's a non-issue. And he's going on and on and on. And then you get the guys, I would have gave you $20 for the turntable. Now the guy I gave it to, he took it home, he never used it. It probably ended up going out in the garbage. But this is so common among people. Okay? You could give them a $20 bill for $10 and they'd have a problem. Okay? Now my problem with that turntable, I had told the guy, I said, that stupid dust cover. It's like the top for a rotisserie chicken. It's heavy. You got to pick it up gently and not hit the tone arm. And I said, when you hit the play button on the ELAC Miracord, as it's going down, sometimes it does something funny, and the whole platter or the whole thing jumps on the springs. You know, everything's suspended. I said, it's a piece of shit. I said, but if you don't have a turntable, it's overkill. It's super overkill. So it's a $198 turntable. And Radio Shack at that time was still selling it. And I didn't want anything to do with it. You know, I got it basically super cheap. Realized I didn't want it. I just want to give it to someone real cheap. But you know what? I'm not going to be talked into selling it for less than we agreed at. We agreed at 20 bucks. And I'm giving it away for 20. And the guy wants to pull I'll give you 15 for it. You know, and then at some point he was saying he only had $15 on him. And then later on he's over at the guy I gave it to. I'll give you 25 for it. It was hilarious, absolutely. But that's what people are all about. Now, I think about these things now that I'm retired. You look back on your life. That was a real good lesson for me right there. Never sell something to someone you know. It's that simple. And someone will say, what happened to it? I sold it. Well, who did you sell it to? You know, I had a guy one time, he was putting a CB set in his car. And he borrowed my SWR meter. It was in a box. It had a patch cord. It had a load resistance for checking the wattage because it was a dual unit. And he gave it back to me without the box, without the patch cord, without the resistor. It bounced around his trunk. It was all scratched up. So I cleaned it up as best I could. I went to a ham flea market, sold it to the first person that wanted it, and that was it. Now, a bunch of other people started calling me up or ringing the doorbell to borrow it. And I said, it's gone. What? It's gone. Well, how am I going to, I don't know what your problem is. You know, they're like, well, how am I going to tune up my CB radio if you don't have your SWR meter? And I'm like, well, maybe you should go buy one. Well, why would I buy one? I have to go hang that phone up. Then one guy actually came to my side door, rang the doorbell, and I told him I sold it. Well, who did you sell it to? Do you have his phone number? I'm like, are you serious? He goes, yeah. I said, I sold it to a stranger at a ham flea market. I don't have it anymore. Were you going to get another one? No, CB is dead. I have nothing to do with it anymore. Okay? Now I look back at my life, and I told you I have that face where people think they can basically say anything they want to me. And now, boy, you don't get away with anything now with me. Okay? I start to question people, and they get offended because that's the game. Okay? But I say, you know what? That's your job. That's not my job. I'm retired. And if they say, I say, I'm retired again. And then if I'm really nice and they start again, I say, what part of retirement don't you understand? Okay. I said, I have enough to do for myself. I don't have a wife. I have to do everything. You have a wife. Well, she don't know how to do that one thing that I know how to do. But you know what? You know how to put garbage out. I know how to put garbage out. Doesn't mean you have to come over and put my garbage out. Okay. It's that simple. I know how to do things. I have skills. And you have a different set of skills, which I have no use for. So I'm not going to keep doing favors for people anymore and not get anything back. That nice guy stuff, when you're laying there thinking you're going to die, it's not going to do you any good at all. Okay? But I just want to tell you, in life you will suffer through the same situation over and over and over until you learn the lesson. And one of the lessons in life, I told you, it's very important, that when you're having a good time, don't go home early. You have a tendency to do that. You'll be at a buddy's house. It's starting to get late at night. Instead of going another half hour, you look at your watch and you say, I got to get home. I got to go to work tomorrow. That's a mistake. Okay? If you're having a good time, don't go home early. The other thing, too, is when you have friends, you should do them a favor. They should do you a favor. When you're working on their deck, maybe they should come over and help you. A lot of people like to flip you $20. And here's 20. I can't really help you. Well, $20 isn't enough. If you're not going to give me back some help for you helping me, I want to be paid full amount. You know, it's the game they play. And these people, I'm going to tell you, they're going to pass through your life. And if you're lucky, you will keep a few friends. But trust me, you work through life, they'll pass through yours, and they basically use you. And then when they don't need you anymore, you won't hear from them anymore. And that's one of those things I never learned. You know, I'd call the person up and, oh, I got to go do this. I'm really busy right now. But when they need you, it doesn't matter how busy you are. You have to help them. Okay? I don't fall for any of that anymore. You know, I used to. I used to say, yeah, I got to really help that guy, you know. Then you get up there and they forgot to get the paint. They don't have the right roller. They don't have the... Yeah, and I used to bring stuff up with me and supply the tools because they couldn't find their tools. And I stopped all that. You just, after a while, you say, this is nonsense, you know. And that's what I've learned. It took me a lot longer than the average person to learn the game. But I have story after story after story about how where you can sell somebody something that's worth $100 for $10. And they really want to get it for $8 or $7 or $5, and that always amazed me. And then you get the guy that he throws a tantrum. I would have bought that. I didn't know you were selling that. Why didn't you tell me? Oh God, those are worse. That's why if you sell something, sell it to someone you don't know. Give them a good price, and don't mention to anybody else that you sold it because they're automatically have money in their pocket, and they would have bought it for more money. That's the bullshit. Okay. And you say, oh, gee, if I would have sold it to him, I would have got full amount. No, he's just making it up because he likes to talk, okay? And in life, you'll learn these lessons. It took me a long time. And my one friend that taught me how to tell people are lying. And after he taught me, he says, it's really going to change things. And he could see after he taught me, he goes, you're going to realize that people use you, they lie, and you really, it's really disheartening. Okay, he didn't use the word disheartening, but he was trying to, I understood what he was trying to tell me. And what happened was, I was at he had a computer store, I was at the computer store, and I was telling him about this crank organ that I was building. And he, you know, every time I mentioned, he goes, go get it. Go get it. So I said, all right. So I went out in my car. I went home. I got the crank organ. I brought it back. I showed it to him. I started cranking it. And he goes, He says, you got to be kidding me. I said, no, I know it's kind of a stupid thing. He says, no. He says, you told me you were building something and you weren't lying. And that's when he decided to teach me about people lying. He says, when you talk to people, you don't make eye contact. I said, well, my mother had this funny thing. If you made eye contact with her, she'd tell you you were lying, you were up to something. I went through that nonsense, okay? So he's telling me just the opposite. You have to make eye contact and the whole thing. So he gave me work cutting some properties he had, mowing the lawn. So I'm out there, and there's some PVC pipe. Let's just say 6 inches diameter. And he goes, can you get rid of that for me? I said, oh, yeah. So I pick it up. I'm looking at it. And I'm looking at it. And he goes, I can see your mind going. He says, you're going to build something out. I said, I got it. I said, this is it. This is what I needed. So 2 months later, I walked into his computer store with the new crank organ, number 2, booklet 2. And he goes, that's my pipe from house. Like, yeah. I cut the pipe into a drum for the crank organ to move the levers. But it was so funny. But somebody actually called me on it. I said, yeah, I built this crank organ, and go home and get it. But what happened was, we had this other guy who used to come in the computer store, and he said he built a miniature Gatling gun that had like 8 different little rifles on it. And he's talking, and then I realized I was asking him some questions, and he claimed it never worked and stuff, and he was bullshitting. And it was really, his bullshit went into great detail that after he built all these miniature guns, that he couldn't get them to trigger. I'm like, that's bullshit. I'm like that, and I had seen that set of plans too, But he saw the set of plans, and he built it in his head, and it never really got built in reality. And then when we started asking him questions about it, it didn't happen. And then the other thing too was, he kept telling us he was a cop. And all this stuff, and it turned out he was in charge of the motor pool. It was unbelievable. And that's why my friend who had the computer store called me. He called bullshit on me and made me go home and get the crank organ. And it was pretty funny. And not only did I build a crank organ, 2 of them, I wrote a book on how to build it and sold the book, or booklet. Let's call it a booklet. Let's not up it and say it was a book. But in other words, he's like, holy crap. I said, yeah. I said, I keep upping my game with the things that I build, and I actually build them and finish them, and it's hard work. It's very hard work. Now, what you're looking at here on my thumbnail, that's a custom-made power supply that drops onto a command radio. There's the connector. Okay. Designed it in my head, built it, made it all fit in, and I've showed you this before. But that's one of my last projects. I have other stuff that I'm working on in my head. But if you saw the last video, I'm getting a lot of weird problems popping up, like things clogging the gutters. The leaves are wacky on the trees. The spinners are coming down. The bark is falling off the tree. Branches are coming down. Because we had 2 heat spells here that weren't normal heat spells. But in other words, the trees, the weeds, everything is acting weird. Okay, the bugs, the amount of bugs, so a lot of times I'll go outside and a branch will just die on a tree because it's too hot, and then it breaks off, and then you got to cut it up and put it in the garbage, and it's an hour's work, and then the garbage is now too heavy to put anything else in it, and the garbage only comes once a week. So my garbage for I've been doing cleaning in the house. I've been pushing myself, even though the house is really hot. I have all my equipment, all my projects, everything's under control now. It would take 4 hours for someone to clean my house out now. That's where I want it. If I die or I get sick, and 2 people, I think they could do it easily in 4 hours now. The amount of things I own. I've been watching Shango 66. And he just brought home more television sets in one trip than I own radios, okay? I keep worrying about how many radios I have and my electronic parts, but everything's organized, everything's in boxes, it's labeled. It'd be very easy for the person to clear this house out. One able-bodied person could clear this house out in 4 hours. And I know based on how long it took me to put everything in this house from the pods. Because I have rooms in this house that are totally empty. and some rooms that are not even totally full anymore. I got it. I got everything under control. But I just want to give you some of those things I went through in life. And a lot of times when you try to sell something to someone, it doesn't turn out well. I won't get into some of the things I did wrong because that was me. I'm gullible. I try to be nice to another person, but they're out to make profit, and you're not. You're just saying, "Well, this works really well. I've had it for a few years. I don't need it anymore. I want to sell it." Now, a lot of people try to get you to give it to them, and they don't want it. They want to resell it and make some money off giving it to someone else. And that's why this one guy told me, anytime anybody offers you anything, take it. Keep it a little while and then sell it. And that's what he was doing to me. I caught on to it all. It's all crystal clear now. And a lot of people basically are out to get you. Okay? And there are some really nice people in the world, but they're few and far between. I think that's it. All right, that's it.